What in the world makes a headphone muddy, nasal, or sibilant? Now let's talk about it. Hey, I'm DMS, you're watching the Headphone Show presented by Headphones.com. If you haven't already seen it, you should check out one of my previous explainers about warm, dark, bright, and so on, because we're going to expand on those terms today. If you haven't seen that video, it's linked in the video description down below. Check it out, and let's get into this one. So, a muddy headphone. Well, that sounds a bit odd at first, but the context of it really does make sense when you hear more about it. A muddy headphone has a bit too much of a bump in the warmth region of the bass. It can kind of cause things to bloom, so to speak, which, that's another weird term, isn't it? It's where the bass starts to bleed into... We really make up these funny words for everything, don't we? Basically, the bass is just too elevated, but not the deep sub-bass. We're talking more like the boomy mid-bass. It causes everything to sound sloppy and congested and just generally unpleasant. You know what? I'm just using more words to describe this that don't make any sense. Let's give you an example of what it sounds like. That makes sense, right? A lot of terms can kind of lead into this. Things like I said, boomy, or bass that bleeds into the mid-range, or bloom. They all sort of start to follow the same kind of thinking that leads to the word muddy. And they're not perfectly interchangeable, but they all kind of go along the same lines. But what makes a headphone nasal? That's a bit of an odd one. Well, think about when a singer takes a microphone and instead of holding it up to their mouth, kind of holds it up to their nose. You hear more of this sinus resonance, something that's a bit more muted on, say, parts of the treble that you might find pleasant. It's a bit more unnatural in sound because, well, you normally don't hear people talking like that in the room. Let's give you an example of something that sounds nasal, say with a singer's voice.
Making moves, trying to get away from this life I'm living. Same old things every day, wanna change this feeling. Wasting no more time, don't care about what you're saying. Try to keep me down, no time for all your playing.
And on the other end of the spectrum, there is the dreaded term sibilance. You've probably heard this one many times in the audio world, and it is something many people fear in their headphones. Sibilance, well, the word itself invokes it. There's a lot of S's in sibilance. And sibilance is when a lot of those S's can become very harsh, very sharp, piercing, too bright, too much treble in that specific range. It is not something that you want. Even if you like a brighter leaning headphone, sibilance is something to try and avoid. It's when brightness goes over the edge and becomes unpleasant. A great example of that is the DT990. Though of course there is no example quite like hearing it, so once again, here is an example of sibilance.
Always think of you when spring comes, like it's something in the air at that time, don't know why. Always dream of you when spring comes. It's like the heat on my skin takes me back to the time that you wanna fry.
A lot of these terms and the terms used in previous videos, well, they're all combinable. Something could be dark and sibilant at the same time, which is really, really weird, but that kind of leans into the dark, bright sound I described before. Something could be warm and sibilant, it could be thin and sibilant, it could be warm and muddy, or say warm and nasal. And we have more terms to discuss in the future, but I think that's probably enough for today's video. Another explainer down, let me know in the comments what terms you would like to know about. I've got a few on my list, like clipping versus distortion and timbre versus dynamics. But it could also be interesting to talk about things like what is a V-shaped headphone or a U-shaped headphone. Let me know what you think in the comments. That is going to wrap this one up. Guys, if you like this video, leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, get at the forums or Discord, both linked in the video description. As always, don't forget to stick around, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Until next one. Peace.